And welcome to Hard Way Learning, where we look stupid so you don't have to. Today we are introducing a new project car to the channel. This is a 2004 Honda S2000. Probably thinking, why would we get one of these? Well, over the years we have worked on a 96 Miata, which is mine. We turbocharged it, we did a lot of things. We did everything to that car basically other than open the engine up and build it. Then we worked on the 2018 Audi RS3, full bolt-ons. That car then proceeded to blow up and has had a few engines in it. I still need to make a video about that whole saga because it was like 2 years of back and forth, and it is finally stupid fast and has not seemed to have any signs of we dare not say reliable. It's fast, and we're going to go to the track. We find ourselves going back to a more analog platform, the S2000, which in my eyes was a huge dream car of mine, hence why I bought a Miata, because it's just like a poor man's S2000, really, and it's also the best car ever made, but beside the point. We have a S2000, which is the AP2, and the AP2 comes with the F22 instead of the F20, which is basically bumps up the displacement from 2 liters to 2.2 liters. The red line comes down from 8,900 to 8,200. The suspension is a little bit softer, but it's been revised in some way. This is a weird year where it didn't quite have the drive-by-wire, so it still has a drive-by cable, which is advantageous when you're doing standalone ECUs. A slightly revised, more aggressive gearing in this car, and it's supposed to be tougher if one was to boost it in the future, maybe. And what else?
Revised interior and exterior.
Now, I don't really know what that means. I think it has some better headlights. It's still a very small car, very tossable. Honestly, it's kind of heavy compared to a Miata, so I don't think this thing will necessarily fare. But what we are doing first with this car is taking it to Brainerd International Raceway. Now that I have a 944, I've been fortunate enough to join the Porsche Club America group, which is Nordstern in the Midwest. And we are taking this on our first, they call it the Spring Fling, and we're gonna prep it for the track. And we wanna get a baseline with stock everything, other than we're going to put some high temp brake fluid in, and we are going to put some upgraded rotors and upgraded pads so that we are able to stop when we are on the track.
Otherwise, fluids.
I said brake. Oh, Dan wants to do transmission and diff fluid and coolant and oil and all the fluids, which is a good idea. This stuff is probably all from 2004 based on the condition of this car. Oh, so when you're buying a used, you want to buy the best example that you can get your hands on. And this car, I mean, I think it was like 2 owners before this. It's about 55,000 miles on it. It has been serviced at Honda its whole life, and it's in really good shape. So we know we have a good platform to start on, and it hopefully won't give us any problems this weekend. Anytime you're using an impact, you want to make sure you have solid ear protection. Today's ear protection is brought to you by Menards. If you haven't heard of them, you probably don't live in the Midwest. And if you don't live in the Midwest, they actually have a website. You can order stuff directly from menards.com. So we're gonna bust all the wheels off today. Our #1 priority is making sure this car stops. First things first, we are going to loosen, I think it's a 10 millimeter for this first brake line bracket. Then our brake line will be free, and we'll be able to pull the, what looks to be maybe a 17 millimeter for the mounting brackets.
It's a long 10 millimeter. To break these 2 bolts loose for the caliper bracket, or brake line bracket rather. Fast forward through this. That bracket's off there. Was there another? So 2 17s for the caliper bracket.
We got a bungee. There's a ridge. That might be tough to get past. So now we may want to remove the actual guide pins.
Do you want to?
No, we're gonna need to hold it.
Envisioning that.
Huh? Always pull. The trick is to always pull. All right. The world's dustiest pads. Pads are gone. Now we can remove our bracket. Now there are these little retaining
Phillips screws.
You don't need to put these back in. They're really just to help you mount the rotor and then mount the caliper. I usually leave them off because they're usually kind of hard to get off. But Dan already cracked loose one of them. We'll see if both of them come off just as easily.
I cracked loose both of them.
Oh, well, that's nice. Now the next thing that can be tricky is actually getting these out, or getting the rotor off. This rotor is pretty much thrashed, so I think we're comfortable hitting it with a mallet. But what you can do is thread a screw through here that'll push it off of the hub. I don't know if I have a screw that'll fit there, so.
But we got a rubber mallet.
We do have a mallet.
In the old hammer's drawer.
Thread it. Oh, and it came right out. It's almost like we bought a great example of a car.
It's only got a little bit of rust on it.
We have our fresh cryo something or other rotor on, and you know what? We decided we're gonna put the little rotor stay on here with the little anti-seize. Give her a nice little snugginess, and hopefully we get that off the next time we take this guy off.
We took a little brake cleaner, cleaned up both surfaces, inner and outer.
So that should just pull straight out. We can clean that up with some brake clean and re-grease them. We'll brush all the dust off of these clips. Someone was watching me out a video and said they didn't understand how these clips came off, so we'll show them. They should just pop off like so. Clean that off, and then you just pop it back in. It's like spring-loaded with these clippy guys. I think they're anti-rattle clips. You don't actually need to use them, but we'll probably throw them back in. Dan scrubbed up the anti-rattle clips.
Cleaned all that up, those surfaces with brake cleaner. These kind of rest in a lip in there. So I'm gonna try and just kind of mush them back in, give them a little turn to make sure they're kind of seated.
And then we will use some high temperature grease for these slide guide pins, guys.
That seems pretty good. You just slam, bam, wham that back in there.
Like a glove. We can get this bracket back on though. You wanna look Torquerinos? Well.
Didn't feel that outrageous. And then the 12 mil caliper guide pin bolts, 24.
All right, so we are removing the rear caliper, and then it's two 14 millimeter bolts for the caliper bracket bolts. Will Dan bust his knuckle?
Survey says, not yet.
Wow, this angle would have been a million times better. Oh, is the handbrake on?
I don't.
The handbrake is on.
Oh, well, that's gonna cause us all sorts of problems.
Make sure your handbrake is off.
She's pretty,
A little pry bar in there, a little pry bar action.
This isn't a pry bar.
You want me to get you a little pry bar action?
I mean, unless you want me to break something more expensive.
I'll get you a little pry bar action. Just a little caught on the pads. Hey, those are not OEM. Or at least they don't say Honda on them. But do you want like a bungee cord?
Bungee cord? Something like that.
All right, we'll clean these up, take the pins out, grease them, clean up the rattle clips. Kind of the same thing we did on the front. And I will insert the torque specs for the caliper bracket here and the pin. Now that we have all of our pads and rotors replaced, we are going to be putting some fresh .4 brake fluid in. Do you know what brake fluid you bought, Dan?
ATE Type 200.
I think that's the stuff I put in the 944.
Came highly recommended on the interwebs.
They say
S2KI.
you really only need like a liter to do the whole system.
So we bought two.
So we got extra. So first things first, we're gonna suck out all this old fluid, which has probably been collecting moisture over the past few years, because brake fluid is hygroscopic, I think is the word.
If it's not, leave a comment, like, subscribe, share. Get that algorithm going. Kyle will hit his head for 50 likes. He'll hit his head either way.
Really gotta find a better spot, or just work on cars on the other side of the garage.
Back cars in.
All right, so we'll suck all this out. Very exciting. Where'd you buy that sucker?
It's just like a turkey baster from the internet. I bought it for working on some bike stuff. So we're just making a guess, but there's some little,
Oh yeah, she's coming up.
trying not to. There we go.
All right, that should allow us to get all the way to the bottom of this thing. We turkey bastered everything out of the master cylinder, and then we are going to fill this completely full with fresh fluid. And this is following whose?
Billman.
Billman, the S2000 god on the interwebs. And believe it or not, typically when you bleed brakes, you go furthest to nearest of the master cylinder, which in this case would be back right back left, front right, front left. But according to Bill Mann, the Honda S2000 god, he says to start on the front right, go to the front left, and then you can bleed the rears at the same time. And we are using just a gravity method. We are not going to pump the brakes at all. So once we get that master cylinder completely full, we will be cracking this front one until the fresh fluid is flowing out of it. We'll close that, do the same on the driver's side, and then move on to the rear. The bleeder screws are all 10 millimeters. So I cracked those loose with a socket as to not round it. So now they're all going to be easy to hit with a wrench. You can also use a flared 10 millimeter wrench. So Dan is filling some ATE blue.
Not blue.
ATE normal. So as you can see, this fluid is basically clear. So we should be looking for clear fluid coming out of the caliper and letting it bleed until it is clear. And it's full.
Ideally, we would have taken the car out for a spirited drive and got the fluid warm. I think that would promote it flowing out faster in this gravity bleed process. We're dumb, so we didn't do that.
We also were servicing the brakes last night, so we didn't really want to put the car back together to do that. I'm gonna crack this one.
Okay, I'll
Ready?
tell you if I see anything happen.
Is the fluid moving at all?
I feel like I saw a tiny bit of movement.
Oh, it's starting to come out. Yeah, all right. You see how dark that fluid is? That's all the old fluid. Gross.
And the goal on the top side here is to keep the reservoir as full as possible. That's gonna promote as much
Pressure.
pressure from gravity as possible.
It'll just speed up the process, keeping that top reservoir full.
This is gonna be a very slow process. Set this down and try and set you up with heat gun. Give it a couple toots.
Well, let me tell you to go in, and then I'll close it, and then you go out, because it was sucking fluid back in when you let go.
Okay.
So in.
Okay.
And out.
Okay.
And in. And out.
It's not draining out too fast. I'm not bottoming out the pedal or anything either. I guess I can bottom out the pedal.
No, you don't want to bottom out the pedal because you can you can exceed the O-rings on the master.
Okay, well then I won't bottom out the pedal.
I would just go 70% of the way down. What was the guy's reasoning for going on this side?
This allows independent scavenging of that last bit of fluid that remained in front of the mast. If you do the left front first, old fluid will move from the front part of the master cylinder to the rear, causing unwanted old-new mixing. This is why starting with the right front is key.
So now
It says this one will go fast, probably because there's no
it's right underneath
comparative
it.
line.
I mean, this is already moving a lot faster than the last one.
Okay, in?
In. Hold on. Whoa. Out. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. Okay.
Good?
Yeah, it looks good.
Nice.
Out. In. Out. In. Out. In. Out. In.
Okay.
All right, that's looking pretty clear.
All right. Well, we're not gonna go anywhere near a whole bottle of this.